And welcome to another edition of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum. We're doing things virtually as the COVID-19 crisis continues, so thank you for joining us. And with me today, a very special guest. I dare say somebody I've known for a few decades now, I'd have to say, a former mayor of the great city of North Bay, and now the member of provincial parliament for Nipissing riding, and most apropos for us, the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade for the province of Ontario, Mr. Vic Fedeli. Vic, thank you for joining our program.
Tony, it's great to be here. Thank you very much. Yes, we have had a very long friendship. I remember you knocking on doors for me in 2003 when I was running for mayor. And of course, I remember knocking on doors with you. So it's been a long time, mostly political and lots of fun.
Lots of fun. And of course, you've had a tremendously important role as the COVID crisis has continued, not only in Ontario, but of course around the world. And I wanted to get your state. Obviously, our thoughts are with all of the people that have been affected by COVID-19, and most notably, of course, people who have had a family tragedy as a result of it. But we are on a business and economic show, and you are a business and economics minister. So the focus is going to be rather than on the public health side, but on the economic side. Tell us what you see right now as the state of the Ontario economy during this crisis.
Well, like you, Tony, I would start by saying the health and well-being of our families is absolutely number one. Every decision we make is about the health and welfare of our families. But this is a business show, and so I will move that aside for a moment and tell you, Tony, with all of the health issues and sadly the deaths that have occurred, it's still a business case that we're looking at, and it may be the single most fascinating business case that you could ever imagine dealing with. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I've never seen anything like this, and it's very fluid. What a COVID day is a week in real time. When I think about, I was doing an announcement the other day, and I said, and earlier in the week, we made an announcement about something. And somebody said to me after it was all done, I didn't want to correct you when you were live, but that was just this morning.
Oh, my goodness.
It really is. We make as many phone calls in a day as we would normally in a week. So we have a pretty good understanding of the state of Ontario, and I'm hopeful. Let me begin with saying I'm hopeful for Ontario. I think we have a better opportunity out of this than many other jurisdictions, whether it's provinces, states, or other countries. But we have a tremendous amount of work to do. We have taken a remarkable hit here. We lost 1.1 million jobs in the province of Ontario in less than 8 weeks. And that means we've got a long way back, Tony.
I dare say, and of course, it is ongoing, and talking to small businesses in my neck of the woods in Muskoka, I'm very fearful in terms of the state of bankruptcies and in the near to medium term as well. You've also got to have a line on Ontario's finances, and I know that that's been a challenge as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, luckily, we did not put out a budget. It happened to come right at the time of the beginning of COVID, and so astutely, a sort of a financial framework went out that day instead, and the budget will come out in the fall, I presume. Now, the financial accountability officer came out and suggested that it's a plus $40 billion deficit in order to get everything done that needs to be done this year. We'll continue to put the supports in place for business that we think are necessary. And quite frankly, the Premier has said what we've put so far is phase one, and there is a phase two of the monies that are necessary. So we'll see what we'll see in the fall. We're watching every penny, but making sure nobody goes without. We're making sure there's food and water in every home and a roof over everyone's head. That's the key driver. We're making sure we work hand in hand with the federal government. There's no politics. I got to be honest with you. There's absolutely no politics involved in this whatsoever. We sit electronically and decide, all right, what needs to be done. Who's in the best position to do that? Not just who can afford it the best, but who can who can get that money out fastest. And if it's a provincial opportunity to get money in the pockets faster, we'll do it. And if it's easier for the feds like EI, they'll do it. So there's no gaps and no duplication. And so, it is a huge cost to the people of Ontario. That's why opening businesses and getting the recovery started sooner is so important for the deficit and for those 1.1 million people who are out of work today.
Speaking with the Honourable Vic Fedeli, the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade for the province of Ontario here on Boom and Bust. Vic, I know that you are co-managing a very important cabinet committee with Rod Phillips, the finance minister, in terms of getting Ontario going again economically. I know you've had a lot of consultations with Ontario businesses. Tell me a little bit about those consultations and what you've learned from those consultations.
We've learned that the business community wants to get going. And we've got some sectors that are going to be in a tougher time to reopen. And I'm thinking, for instance, where there's large crowds, the sports, the tourism, the entertainment sector. Those are going to be more difficult because of the capacity where you've got people on people. And that is going to be a lot more challenging versus getting the tech sector back. That involves money, capital, making sure that the capital markets are ready and they're offering liquidity to these companies. Because look at you and I right now. I'm in Corbeil, Ontario, a town of 4,800 people. I operate my ministry from 3 Blackberries, a hardened laptop, and this desktop that I'm talking to you on. What I'm trying to say is technology, we've leapfrogged the whole generation, in my opinion, Tony. Men and women our age probably thought, yeah, this is all going to come sooner than later, but now we're forced into it. You think, this is not so bad. This is really working rather well. So I think the tech sector, thankfully, we were the number 2 IT cluster in all of North America, and that I think will help lead us out. So that's what we're learning on the calls. The manufacturing sector will have challenges as well, making sure the workplaces are safe, that there's social distancing practice, that there's cleanliness practice, whether it's every hour or whatever they're going to be doing to wipe down their shops. So that's what we were learning, that every sector is going to be different, and there are lots of challenges ahead.
Now, you also spearhead for the Ontario government the Ontario Together initiative. And I want to get a little bit into that because really this is about, and I've been on about this for a while now, about the changing needs and the changing nature of the supply chain. Yep. And how there are critical sectors of our economy that we want to gain more control over. I know the Premier has been very forceful about this, that even if we are beholden to the current supply chains, which are, let's say it, all roads lead to China, that he wants to see a diversification of that. And you're leading that task, if you will. Tell us a little bit about Ontario Together and what's going on there.
Well, it's fascinating, Tony, first of all, to see the 20,000 people who went on that website and with their ideas. It's really wonderful to see the 9,000 companies that we ended up making purchases from, almost $200 million through that website of purchases for our supply chain of personal protective equipment, PPE. We need masks, gowns, ventilators, face shields, gloves. Those are the PPE we're referring to. First call I made was to Canada Goose, because as minister, I had just toured their place some weeks before, and called the CEO and said, can you switch over to something, make something that we need? And they're making 700,000 gowns.
Wow.
Yeah, it's spectacular, right? Ford, is making the plastic face shields. General Motors is reopening in Oshawa with 50 people to make 1 million masks a month. Both Honda was involved with the company Sterling to make face shields again. A couple 100,000 a week they're making. Fiat Chrysler and Toyota have been unbelievably helpful to us on supply chain, understanding lean production. They're lending out their people to help us, help companies. So these are that's just one sector, the auto guys. But now their parts manufacturers like Magna and Woodbridge, they're making 1 million masks a week. And I think they think it's a pretty good business to stay in. So, I
well,
can
that
go
was
on.
my next question. I know we have a temporary need, but do you think that there could be an indigenous supply chain on critical aspects of our supply chain?
Not only do I think so, Tony, there has to be. The Premier has said, never again are we going to get caught beholding to somebody. And so he is demanding that we manufacture it. So that's why we have the Ontario Together Fund. It's a $50 million fund. We've awarded our very first one recently to Virox Technologies in Oakville, and they are making wipes. So they've got an assembly line that's being developed right now, being installed right now. And they'll be up and running shortly, and they're making the sanitized wipes. We've got many more that we'll be announcing. I'm literally putting my signature to more of them this week. And this is it. We want to make sanitizer, masks, wipes, all of these things we want to make in Ontario permanently for Ontario, for Canada, and for export, because our trade is going to be so important in our recovery.
Now, thank you very much. Talking to Vic Fedeli, Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade for Ontario. I want to get to the trade issues now, because I know you're very well versed in them. You're a former entrepreneur. You know about how important it is for Ontario to establish more markets outside of our jurisdiction. What do you see as the changing trade patterns? The whole idea of changing the supply chain is diversifying our trade and our certainly our exports, but also our imports from other countries. So what do you see as the future of trade with US, with Asia, with Europe?
I'm going to start closer to home, Tony. It's impossible to imagine we have such poor inter-provincial trade. I mean, you cannot take a vehicle, a truck, a tractor trailer from coast to coast easily in Canada. There are different tire pressures in every province. The requirements for a first aid kit are different in every province. It's as ridiculous as that. So we really need to bust open who does what right across the country. Our growers cannot be afraid to have BC wine for sale in Ontario. And because they've got the opportunity to sell their wine in every other province, they should look at it as an expanded market instead of being so parochial. So I think inter-provincial trade will be the first one. We were so close to cracking it open before COVID. For the last 12 months, we've been working really closely with our provincial counterparts in economic development and with other premiers. I said to Premier Ford one day, "Are we free traders?" "Yes, we are." "Then let's get going in our own country." And he gave us the open kimono version. Let's just go. We're all in. There's not going to be any side deals. There's not going to be any carve outs for specialties. Let's go all in. So we went at it with that premise. Now, we were just beginning, and COVID-19 hit. So we'll start there, Tony.
What are you finding from your provincial counterparts who are also trade ministers? Is there goodwill towards internal trade reform?
I think there will be more now than there was pre-COVID. Everybody had, "Well, Vic, this is great except for my X sector. They need a special carve out, or this sector in another province." And we've seen some provinces that said, "No, we're with you. We're going to open it up 100%, and you'll lead the way and open it up 100%, and the others will come together." So we were starting to see that. But I think post-COVID now, they're going to need us. They're going to need the power of 40% of the population that Ontario has. So I think that'll be our first challenge, followed by the U.S.
Yeah, let's talk about Ontario-U.S. trade. Where do you see things now, and where's it going?
Tony, again, just before COVID, Premier Ford and I were in Washington with the National Governors Association. They were to come here in April for a reciprocal visit with governors from all over the U.S. We were very close on 5 subnational deals. Now, nationally, there's the NAFTA 2.0, which I don't have to tell you one thing about. I know that is your genuine area of understanding and expertise. NAFTA 2.0 could be good for Ontario because the change in the local source of auto parts was growing from 62.5% to 70%. That means fewer parts from overseas, more have to be made here in the 3 NAFTA areas. So we'd have just as good a shot. So we saw that as a real door opener. There's no Buy America in NAFTA, but there are Buy America clauses in the States. And so we had 5 subnational deals ready to go, and COVID hit. And those will be gone. And we'll have to work hard to get them back. But to hear the U.S. with this drum beating of Buy America, that it makes me very nervous. So I need to be down there, whether electronically in all their media, saying, 307,000 people in Ohio woke up this morning to make products to ship to Canada. Mm-hmm. So this Buy America of yours is not good for your people.
So do you see a lot more sort of Ontario bilateral engagement with specific states like New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania? Everybody likes, I was the same guy. I went to Washington a lot. And that's where the national government is. But really, there's a lot of stuff we can do state to state or province to state as well.
Yes, that's how we're going to have to do it. Again, the NAFTA is supposed to cover the national picture, and good or bad, we think we understand that. And as long as everybody honors it now that it's been ratified and will be put in place July 1, we'll be fine if everybody sticks to it. It's the subnationals, Indiana, Michigan, as well as the list that you cited. Those are the places that we are the number 1 trading partner. Ontario is the number 1 trading partner to 19 states. They need us badly. Fooling around with a Buy America, which sounds beautiful, except it doesn't work because we have such an integrated supply chain. So I see myself really pouring it on hard once we can travel again, or once some of the sentiment settles and the bravado's gone, and we can start when the car plant's open. That'll start.
Let's talk about Europe and the UK a little bit too. I know that's been a focus with the CETA agreement, the Comprehensive European Trade Treaty that was started under the Harper government, ratified under the Trudeau government. What do you see happening with Ontario-Europe trade relations?
Well, I have to congratulate Prime Minister Harper, yourself, all the people involved. 50 trade deals were done under your government. And it's awful that so few Canadian and especially Ontario companies are taking advantage of that. The hard work, the sweat equity that went into that. And we have, I think it's something like fewer than 5% of companies involved in world trade. So again, the Premier said to me, you're going to be pretty darn busy when this is over because we've got to rebuild our trade. And I'm thinking not only rebuild it, that rebuilding it is to a very low bar, to be honest. Look at in India, for instance, 1.3 billion people. We do $400 million in one-way trade to India. That's it. That's all we sell them. And the number 1 export is aerospace. So when you think of it, how few aircraft could that be? Mm-hmm. Our number 2 export to India is scrap metal. That's our big export. So, that tells us we've got a whole lot of work to do. And when you see Boris Johnson saying, all right, if you travel to England, you've got to self-quarantine for 14 days, this is going to change travel. So, Tony, I think you're
Right.
going to see us doing this electronically. We're going to have electronic trade shows. We will spend the millions that we were spending on trade shows around the world for the next year. That will, a portion of that now, because we'll only need a portion, will be spent on digital trade shows, virtual trade shows, like Farnborough Air Show, Le Bourget. They're not happening this year.
Yeah.
They can't happen in England in July.
Right. It's one level unfortunate, but we've got to look for those opportunities, and I'm glad that you're looking at keeping those contacts alive virtually.
Yeah.
While we move forward. And I'm glad you mentioned India. I know you had a trade mission to India as well as Japan and Korea. So let's talk a little bit about Asia as well. I mean, obviously, great opportunity, disruption there because of COVID, but also opportunity as well for Ontario.
Tony, I think it's opportunity to pounce. The reputation of Canada and Canadian goods is spectacular overseas. They don't know the word Ontario, and I don't care that they don't know that. That's not going to be important. They know Toronto, they know Canada. Ontario is just quite frankly a foreign word. And so we will be promoting the heck out of Canada and Canadian goods. We've got pork and beef and grain. We've got tech products. We have mining. You know, in the UK, we export about 12 or 13 billion dollars a year to the UK. It's 10 billion of it is minerals. So, thankfully we did not shut down our mining sector during COVID. We did not shut down our manufacturing sector during COVID. The auto plants chose themselves to shut down, and they can open themselves whenever they're ready. Right. Now, we did open auto retailers or auto dealerships for them a week ago as a signal. Okay, auto dealerships are open. That's our signal. You can open up anytime, guys. We're ready for you.
Right.
So I think you'll see our manufacturing products in Asia, in Europe. So we had three plans. We had a plan for inter-provincial. We had a plan for expanded U.S. and we had a plan for the world. So we'll now need to modify, tone down the world a bit, push hard on the States, but really finalize what we had planned for inter-provincial trade.
Speaking with the Honourable Vic Fedeli, Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and the Member of Provincial Parliament for Nipissing riding. Vic, thank you for being on the program. One last question for you. I know your time is valuable, but I'd love to get your kind of broad vision, the transformation of the Ontario economy. We know, obviously, COVID has hit us as well as everywhere hard, but you seem and I know this about you, you're a very optimistic person. You're a rah-rah. You're out there to make Ontario, get Ontario the opportunities that Ontarians deserve. So what do you see as the economic future? Where can we see the transformation?
Again, I think tech will lead the way because so much now will have to be done online, and every time we do something, a video conference, you can see the flaws, and so our tech sector, our AI sector will be really pushing hard to make it a leader. Our advanced manufacturing, we're still the number 2 automaker in North America, the number 2 IT cluster and the number 2 automaker. They will come together, they will merge together for autonomous and connected vehicles. I think you're going to see a real push on those two coming together to push hard. And as well, because of COVID now, more push on life sciences. We don't make the pharmaceuticals here in Ontario that we used to make in the past. So I'm asking every one of them, what does it take to add 1 million square feet and make a new product? So you're going to see us really focusing on several sectors. We can't be the be-all to end all for everybody. So let's pick a few that are leading the way. And I'm not suggesting it's those. I'm just saying there will be sectoral leadership, and the market will always win out. What rises to the top, we'll continue to support.
Well, I think you're offering some hope for the future as we get through this period of COVID. Vic Fedeli, I want to thank you for being on the program. Hang on, I'm going to sign off, but just hang on for a moment. Thank you, viewers, for watching Boom and Bust with Tony Clement again for another episode here at the News Forum, where every voice matters. I look forward to our next encounter.